I thought I was going to be done with this shit.
J.D. Vance will never be president.
Well, you know, time's a funny...
I was wrong. And now it's time for me to eat my hat. Okay.
No, fuck that. You remember in part 1 when JD got the whole vice presidential job because he said that he would not certify an election that Trump didn't win?
J.D. Vance entirely loyal to Donald Trump, so much so that he said that if it had been him instead of Mike Pence, he would have thrown those electoral votes back to the states.
Well, guess what? That's me now, bitch. How the fuck did this happen? Hashtag stop the steal. We had 2,000 mules. What, Republicans also got 2,000 mules? Or 2001 mules? So now there's 4,001 mules.
What is a mule?
Person picking up ballots and running them to the drop boxes.
This is not grandma out walking her dog.
They have ruined Election Day in the United States of America.
Without free and fair elections, we are not a democracy. We are a criminal cartel masquerading as a democracy.
4,001 mules.
Kamala, I call on you to do what Dick Cheney would do. Tell the American people to go fuck themselves. And then do what Mike Pence never had the balls to do and certify yourself as president anyway.
Got him!
Fuck!
Turns out, voting works. It's real. As much as we fucking thought they had it rigged, as much as we thought there was shenanigans and bullshit and it's just a puppet show and there's no way anybody could buck the system, turns out voting is still real.
Wow, voting works. Well, welcome to my Cry More Lib video. You came here and obviously clicked on a video that follows up a video that had this image. So I guess that you came here so you could goon to a liberal crying. So have fun. I welcome you. And actually, I will give you this one. So if you still haven't come yet, I invite you to enjoy the rest of this video. So let's begin with what you're all waiting for. A very special congratulations to our boy JD. JD, you did it! You guys won, and soon it will be illegal to be black or a woman in a Star Wars, or whatever you want, I guess. Whatever you want to do, you can do it now. I mean, I spent 3 hours trying to figure out what you would do if you had power.
In all seriousness, what is the plan here?
And I still couldn't figure it out, except for all of the same stuff Republicans have been trying to do since the 80s, the Reagan administration, but also really the Nixon administration. But, you know, really every time since Ike, I guess. Or really, you know, we don't need to go down a historical rabbit hole here. Now, in many ways, you yourself, JD, are a DI hire, since you're one of the most inexperienced vice presidents in American history, all the way back to Edward Todd Stewart's President James Madison's shoeshine boy, who became his vice president for 2 months. It was a crazy victory for children everywhere. We might do a separate video just on that alone. But hey, JD, at least you have a beard. And a hello to you, Usha. Congratulations, second lady, not bad. I'm kidding. Now, in part 7, I said that JD was about as intellectual as the Trump administration was likely to ever get.
It's probably about as intellectual as the Trump administration is likely to ever get.
Why did you need proof that I said that? Anyway, this sentiment was said by Trump himself in his victory speech.
He's turned out to be a good choice. I took a little heat at the beginning, but he was, I knew the brain was a good one, about as good as it gets.
But, as many of you noticed, that was 3 weeks ago, and here we are. This is our new reality, and we're gonna need the big boy. That's good, dude. Good thing, JD, you never have to have Mountain Dew ever again in your life. You're vice president. You're going to have Secret Service forever. You know, you don't have to talk to us working class schmucks ever again. But where were we? Oh, yeah. JD being the big brain of the Trump administration. Well, here's what's very interesting. That was 3 weeks ago. And that was about the last time we've seen JD Vance publicly. Where's JD? And who cares? You know what? JD has the next 4 years to just do nothing and wander around aimlessly in a giant mansion. Number 1 observatory circle. And the only thing he'll observe is all of his friends having fun while he has to just wait for his boss to keel over on a toilet while looking at photos of Rihanna. Then the Secret Service will drag Trump's body to the Rose Garden, where they will shoot him in the ear again and say that he had been assassinated by the left while sitting on the toilet. I heard it from a friend who works in the deep state. But JD is getting a head start on this role as he idly watches Trump give all of the good jobs to people he saw on TV.
Okay. This motion will usually get you close.
I break out my video camera and I'm filming everybody in our group and hanging out. And all of a sudden I see Montana like looking at me like she's gonna unzip her vest and show me her boobies.
He even has to watch his good buddies Vivek and Ellen plan the most awesome sleepover ever. I did misspeak. Matt Gaetz as Attorney General? Dude, that could have been you. JD, you're a lawyer. Woke lawsuits? That's kind of your thing. That could have been your whole bag, man.
Culture war in this country is a class war.
But instead, you got the job of talking to key Senate Republicans behind closed doors, telling them to ignore all of the paying for sexual relations with a minor and just help us push this guy through. We're the moral majority now. A Trump advisor even backed you up and told all of them that if you're on the wrong side of the vote, you are buying yourself a primary. That is all. And there's a guy named Elon Musk who's going to finance it. Peter Thiel's buddy David Sachs, remember they wrote that book together?
Peter Thiel graduated from Stanford with David Sachs, and in 1995 they co-authored the book The Diversity Myth, Multiculturalism and the Politics of Intolerance at Stanford.
He tweeted, Matt Gaetz resigned from Congress as soon as he was nominated for AG. This is a burn the boats move. No going back, only forward. Total winners mentality. Well, total loser mentality. All of Matt Gaetz' underground, pedophilic, satanic sex rituals caught up with him, and he removed himself straight to the unemployment line.
It's just going to make you love capitalism all that much more, and success and prosperity.
Sorry, JD, but it seems like assignment 1 didn't go so hot. This vice president thing may be harder than Mike Pence made it look. All he ever had to do was take taxpayer money, fly to a football game, and then be offended. But look, JD, the last person you need advice from is me, a 40-year-old loser from Ohio, because you are now a 40-year-old winner from Ohio. You were one of the stars of a winning campaign. Assuming anyone from the future will have any interest in the past, you'd have to imagine that they'll never really understand how inconsequential an assassination attempt actually was to the final results of this election.
Like a small boat on the ocean.
As President Trump raised his fist and gave a rally cry on Saturday, now is our time to fight.
So you open it up?
It is.
Yeah, it is. I'll get on the other side.
In fact, what probably turned out more voters than that assassination attempt was a last-ditch effort to have a closing message that was telling the young men of the manosphere, who usually hate sex and gay people, that they need to deeply care about a gay porn star's pet squirrel.
So I don't know. I mean, I hope people just go out there and vote for Peanut, man. If nothing else, if nothing else, just vote for Peanut, you know.
We need justice for Peanut, right? Like, you know, and it's not just a squirrel. It's all the kids that went hungry that night, and all the other things that the money and resources could have been put to. Hopefully that D.O.G.E cleans things up down at the state level.
Either way, you won, and finally the elites will pay. In the words of your benefactor and star of part 6 of our series, and guy we've already mentioned once, but we'll probably mention 1,000 times more,
Peter Thiel.
He declared that with this election, the counter-elites won. Yes, the counter-elites won, and this is why the bankers are dancing in the streets. Now, obviously, I'm not implying that the Democratic Party are not the elites. They are. They all are. This whole thing is stupid. No one is on your side. No one is going to risk losing money to make your grocery prices go down. Grow up. Rich people always support power. Party does not matter. Neoliberalism won long ago, and most of you watching this have a better grasp on politics and history than the tech CEOs who have deep-fried their brains using their own products. But it's worth remembering how this election started. Trump was always seen as too erratic, and the billionaires wanted his successor now. Someone just as right-wing, but easier to control. Before the Republican primaries officially started, that was Ron DeSantis. From June 2023, Ron DeSantis' super PAC, Never Back Down, had nearly $97 million available to spend at the end of June, a figure that far surpasses the super PAC supporting his rivals. That includes the outfit supporting Trump, which reported just short of $31 million in cash on hand. Exactly 1 year ago from now, November of 2023, Peter Thiel personally told Donald Trump no more money when Trump asked him for $10 million. Anyway, as it got down to the wire, JD stepped in and he begged old daddy to give new daddy money. At this point, here's what I started to see. We seem to become really gridlocked in this country, where each election cycle seemed to dishearten a major voting bloc, getting them to abandon any real hope of top-down change. Under Obama, this happened to youthful progressives who realized that he was just a centrist and started the whole Occupy campaign while he was president. And then in 2016, these centrist Democrats couldn't believe that a racist game show host could have no political experience come in and just blow the whole thing apart. In 2020, Trump voters couldn't believe that you could lose an election just because you wanted it really, really bad and everyone who lived in your bubble seemed to agree with you. And now, in 2024, you have centrist Democrats wondering why moderate Republicans did not vote for them.
For every blue-collar Democrat we will lose in Western PA, we will pick up 2-3 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And you can repeat that in Ohio and Illinois and Wisconsin.
When given the choice of Republican or Republican light, Republicans chose Republican. My theory was that in recent times, this major group, progressives for Obama, mainstream Democrats for Clinton, Trumpers for Trump, all felt that the system was in chaos and they were left on the outside. Something bigger than just losing an election and thinking, oh, well, we'll just get them next time. Rather, oh, fuck, we've lost our only shot, now we'll never get them. The age of Reagan becoming president and making America in his own image, Clinton making the country in his own image, George Bush trying to make the country in his own image was essentially over. We are now stuck, probably since Citizens United, in this sort of gridlock where the only thing that can get passed are things that benefit the ruling class, and there is no... In a way, I thought that 2024 was starting to look like the billionaires were going to be that group of this election. They had gotten used to being able to buy the seats that they needed. They had lost a lot of races in the 2022 midterms. Now, it's not that I thought that they would no longer rule this country, far from it, but that they would find that elections were harder to win with just money, which is true because more billionaires supported Harris, so clearly they are having a bad time. But a lot of billionaires were trying to take their money and push out Trump to find someone easier to control. J.D. Vance, maybe? But it really wasn't working for them. Voters didn't like Ron DeSantis, even as much as Elon Musk tried to push Ron DeSantis at the time.
His commitment to freedom and his willingness to put his money where his mouth is, upset the narrative control imposed on us by our government, elite institutions, and corporate media. Go ahead and send a heart up if you want to say thank you, Elon.
And voters certainly weren't really buying Nikki Haley. They were just buying times, I think, and I think most billionaires really were hoping that a Democrat would win so that then they could force up someone like J.D. Vance in the background over the next 4 years. But in a way, it seemed like in 2024, the billionaires would be the ones feeling like the system was broken. It used to be you shoved money into a candidate and then they win and then that candidate does whatever you want. For example, a big difference between Ronald Reagan being an empty suit and Donald Trump being completely erratic and firing John Bolton because he thinks his mustache looks stupid. So let's look at what happened. Now, obviously, billionaires don't only support Donald Trump. 150 billionaire families have spent a total of $1.9 billion in support of presidential and congressional candidates this cycle, a 58% increase from 2020. These billionaires spent $570 million on Trump's campaign and $130 million on Kamala Harris's campaign. And money can buy a lot of things, like media control. So in the final weeks of the campaign, JD was replaced by Elon Musk as daddy's new favorite son. Elon Musk, richest man in the world / working class hero.
I disagree with the idea of unions, but perhaps for a reason that is different than people may expect, which is I just don't like anything which creates kind of a lords and peasants sort of thing. And I think the unions naturally try to create negativity in a company and create a kind of sort of lords and peasants situation.
I don't like the word wealthy or billionaire or things like that because I think it's degrading. I think he's the genius of the world.
Now, for the record, this is when I thought the Trump campaign was truly a bust. You know those charts that show the majority of people that when they adopt a new trend or technology? Elon Musk is usually 2 years behind the end of this chart. His deep involvement in the Trump campaign signaled to me that they were starting to circle the drain. 8 years is about the average time for any sort of new political era. But the Democrats never truly attempted to address the economic concerns in this country that gave Trump power in the first place. So, here we are.
Star is born, Elon.
Again, I was wrong. Oh, that's some good hat. Now, in a just world, this would have been Elon Musk's Howard Dean moment.
That's interesting.
Or, well, no, this would be.
USA!
Elon made a super PAC called America and injected $200 million into the Trump campaign. After he did all of his backtracking of, oh, here's $40 million a month, or I don't know, maybe not. Let's see how it goes. I never said that.
At no point did I say that I was doing any $45 million a month for Trump. That was a fiction made up by the Wall Street Journal.
Again, this is where I thought the billionaires would be left feeling disjointed after the election, that pumping money into a campaign didn't work because Elon has pumped money into a lot of things for it not really to work. Now, obviously, this theory did pan out for some billionaires. Mike Bloomberg is clearly not happy, and he gave some money to the Harris campaign. And it's worth remembering the 2020 primaries, when Michael Bloomberg stepped up because he was so concerned about beating Trump, and then he spent $1 billion of his own money to only last for 10 weeks. It was apparent then, and it's even more apparent now, that he didn't really care about beating Trump. He cared about stopping Bernie. And how did Bloomberg do this time? Well, he gave $50 million to the Harris campaign after months of begging in a week before the election. So he laughed at Elon for buying Twitter and buying X. Okay, if you're still watching this and gooning to your crime war lib, have at it, yep. Shoot it all over your screen. We had a good time watching him lose all the money from the banks and the Saudis and Diddy. Well, I guess that he gets the last laugh now. Because immediately after the election, he made it all back and then some.
2 months ago, look at this. His net worth was $252 billion. Look at where we are today, $314 billion. He is by far the richest man ever to be on this planet. So yes, he's not as popular. Yes, Twitter/X perhaps is not as popular, but it's a much different platform, one that more represents Elon Musk's, let's say, political instincts, and he is now a far wealthier man.
It's so bizarre.
And plus, he has a new best friend. One day, you're just laughing at some jackass, not realizing that you're actually watching a new political era being born. For example, remember when the host of The Apprentice wouldn't shut up about Obama's birth certificate and kept posting stuff like this?
The people of India are going crazy that President Obama was constantly chewing gum. And then on top of that, he took it out of his mouth, put it back. You can't do it. It's disgusting.
And like this?
They're remaking Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. You can't do that. And now they're making Ghostbusters with only women. What's going on?
Wow, we had fun back then. Sorry, I got stuck in 2015 for a second. So now the boys are all out winning, but where's JD? Shouldn't he be there? He even missed the UFC fight that all his buddies were at. That guy next to Donald Trump is Mr. Yasser Al-Rumayyan, or however you say it, correct me in the comments. He's the chairman of Aramco's board of directors, also known as the Saudi Arabian Oil Company, and the governor of the Public Investment Fund, the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia, where he manages $930 billion. You may remember that in 2021, they gave Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner $2 billion to his private equity fund, and that same year, they also gave President Trump's previous Secretary of Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, $1 billion to his private equity firm. Didn't his signature on the dollar look stupid? I mean, come on. Oh, wait, sorry. Some of you guys gave me a lot of pushback on being unfair in some of the previous videos. So, in fairness, here is Jake Lew, Secretary of the Treasury under Obama's signature, which is obviously worse. How many O's are in Jake Lew? None. So why does it look like that? So the billionaires know where their bread is buttered. On the campaign trail, the CEOs of Google, Apple, and Meta all made sure that they were on Trump's good side. Because he's going to tear them apart for us, the working people. Right? Okay, another apology. Earlier, when I said that Trump's assassination attempt got him no bump, I was wrong. Apparently, Mark Zuckerberg is the weirdest one-issue voter. His single issue is if someone tries to shoot a candidate, then he has to vote for them, I guess. It just sucks that Mark Zuckerberg never got to vote for Bud Dwyer.
No! God, please, no!
Now, of course, these same billionaires would be congratulating Kamala Harris if she had won. Her campaign spent more money than Trump's campaign. She spent $1.5 billion in the final 15 weeks and ended it with $20 million in debt. Uber's chief legal officer, Harris' campaign advisor, and her own brother-in-law, Tony West, advised the campaign to steer away from sharp criticism of corporate power, angling toward the approval of big business.
Uber, baby!
Now, if we really want to talk about how money is used to influence elections, we could talk about how the most expensive House of Representatives primary in U.S. history happened in this election. It was a Democrat-on-Democrat primary. It was the Democratic Party with the support of AIPAC primarying their own incumbent, New York Representative Jamal Bowman, due to his criticism of the Biden administration's support for Israel in their ongoing war. It took $15 million in the support of Hillary Clinton to replace Bowman with the more moderate Democrat George Latimer. This was during the primaries where you may remember that more than 650,000 Democrats voted uncommitted to express their frustration with the Biden administration's support of Israel. And how did that end up working out for them? Well, other vocal critics of U.S.'s support for Israel, like Ilhan Omar, outperformed Harris in 2 of the 3 counties that make up her district, including winning by 21 points in a county that Harris lost by 4. Representative Rashida Tlaib won her district by 70%, which covers northern Wayne County, a place where Trump took more than a third of the county's vote, and Kamala Harris turned in the worst performance for a Democrat in Wayne County in 36 years, winning by less than 30% for the first time since 1988. And this is not to mention that the Harris campaign could have broken with Biden and supported an arms embargo to Israel, and she likely would have picked up 3 swing states and won the election. Now, despite Trump winning the popular vote, he also won big in states that came out for policies that he himself opposes, like Missouri voting for Trump and to constitutionally support abortion rights, or Florida voting for Trump and in favor of the right to abortion initiative by 57%. Ooh, 57%, so close, you lose. We should also mention someone that came up several times in the JD and Me series.
Senior Senator from Ohio, Sherrod Brown.
JD's fellow senator who lost his seat this election. It was the most expensive Senate race in the entire election cycle and the most expensive in Ohio history, with $441 million in past and future spending between the candidates and the PACs that supported them. Sherrod Brown lost to Bernie Moreno, a Colombian immigrant who made money in the blockchain industry and in 2016 said, "There is no scenario in which I would support Trump." And just for fun, let's do a couple of tie-ins, since this is the epilogue and all. In part 2 of JD and Me, we talked about wage theft.
Wage theft?
Moreno settled over a dozen wage theft lawsuits prior to launching his U.S. Senate campaign, and he was ordered to pay more than $400,000 to 2 former employees. In part 5, we talked about reparations and JD's view of them when he was in college.
Reparations.
Well, Moreno has an interesting view where in 2023, he said that he thought reparations should be paid to the descendants of Civil War soldiers who helped free slaves. Yeah, we'll see about that. So goodbye, NAFTA-hating, Iraq war, no voting, senior senator from Ohio, Sherrod Brown. The Democratic Party just couldn't save you. Oh, and one more thing. The other name on this hat, Walz. Arguably one of the best choices that the Harris campaign made was choosing Tim Walz as vice president.
Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dipshit on these things. You know it.
In 2016, Rahm Emanuel was the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and he was told by Minnesota Representative Betty McCollum, "I met this fabulous guy. He's in a red district, and I think he's going to win," she recalled. And Rahm looked at me like I was crazy. He said, "No, he has no money, no nothing." And for all you Josh Shapiro stands, here's the best map that Harris could have hoped for if she had picked Josh Shapiro. But this video is not about the Democrats and how bad they are at elections. This video is about J.D. Vance and other sycophants' vision of Trump's win as a win against the elites. This magical group that we spent all of part 7 in J.D. Me failing to find out exactly who they were and exactly how are we going to replace them.
I sort of see my role and my voice as being explicitly anti-elitist, explicitly anti-regime.
Stuffy professors that we need to hang in the streets and then suddenly everything will be better and everyone will have a wife and 2.5 kids and live in the suburbs and be white. This brings us to a congratulations that Trump and Vance received from across the pond. From the Right Honorable Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. I assume he talks like the Queen.
Donald Trump's victory is a crushing defeat for the global elite and should be celebrated.
Cheerio, boy, you've defeated the elites. What's that? Would I care for some McDonald's? Oh no, I simply couldn't. All of my meals are prepared by the callous hands of my servants. The callous hands of the underclass did prepare this burger? Well then, might I have a fish fillet? Sorry, that needlessly got Irish at the end. Now, I first discovered Sir Jacob when I was editing this movie that I released to YouTube earlier this year. I assumed that he sucked because I found this footage of him as a child.
Jacob is the focus of a French television documentary titled 12 Years Old, Trader and Fan of Thatcher.
I love money, always have done. Why? Because you need money, and with money you can make more money, and if you've got money, you can buy things that you want. I could buy this Rolls Royce.
Do you intend to get married and to have children?
No, I intend to stay a bachelor, because I don't want to get divorced and have the wife take all my money.
He's been called the Honorable Member for the 18th century, and he has the distinct honor of uttering the longest word ever said on the floor of Parliament.
Floxinosinihilipilification.
In 2022, he was the Minister of State for Brexit Opportunities and Government Efficiency. Sound familiar? His father wrote several books with titles such as The Reigning Error, The Crisis of World Inflation, Blood in the Streets, Investment Profits in a World Gone Mad, and The Great Reckoning, How the World Will Change Before the Year 2000. In keeping with the theme of JD and me, and looking at books where the counter-elites reveal too much of their master plan, we should look at a book that the elder Rees-Mogg published in 1997, specifically because it was reprinted in 2020 with a preface written by
Peter Thiel.
Take a shot, told you he'd be back. The book is The Sovereign Individual, Mastering the Transition to the Information Age. It focuses on the rise of the internet and cyberspace, digital currency and digital economy, self-ownership, and, the kicker, decentralization from the state. It's credited as predicting the rise of digital currencies such as Bitcoin. So in 1997, this sounds like a pretty cool book to imagine how the internet will help usher us into a brave new world. Well, the original subtitle was not Mastering the Transition to the Information Age. It was How to Survive and Thrive During the Collapse of the Welfare State. The book suggests that within the rise of the new cyberspace and consequently cyber money, it will become harder for a nation state to collect taxes from its citizens. They compare the state to a farmer keeping cows in a field to be milked, but that soon the cows will have wings. They predicted that for the government to collect taxes from its citizens in this type of society, it would have to violate human rights. Even traditionally civil countries would have to resort and turn nasty. Ah, fun little beach read. In the new millennium, cyber money controlled by private markets will supersede fiat money issued by governments. Only the poor will be victims of inflation and ensuing collapses into deflation that are consequences of the artificial leverage which fiat money injects into the economy. Sorry, poorers, you should have invested into Cumcoin when you had the chance. Now we're off to the moon! The book has such fun chapters as The End of Egalitarian Economics, The Revolution in Earnings Capacity in a World Without Jobs, Nationalism, Reaction, and the New Luddites, and of course, The Twilight of Democracy. If you're one of the lucky few who actually watched all of JD and me and are still here now, The Twilight of Democracy might set off a light bulb in your head, and a little moth might fly up to that light bulb. A moth named Moldbug. So the counter-elites won, and Trump is heading into a second term with the executive, legislative, and judicial branches pretty much under his thumb, and with recent Supreme Court rulings, he essentially has more power than any previous president. So does this satisfy our buddy Moldbug's desire for an American dictator? You might be surprised to learn that no, it does not. He thinks that the American people did not give over enough power. Okay, dude, look, you got the best that you're probably ever going to get, so just be happy with what you wished for. Although he is pleased with D.O.G.E, Vivek and Elon's super epic sleepover known as the Department of Government Efficiency, a new government agency with double the amount of directors. Moldbug, or Yarvin, finds it amusing that the word Doge has its root in the Latin word for leader, much like the Italian Il Duce. Again, you guys won, and now we're all going to be living la vida duce. Because like the big Duce said, fascism should be more properly called corporatism because it is a merger of state and corporate power. Corporate power? No. This is for us. D.O.G.E is going to save us all. D.O.G.E will save us all. And the first agenda of any serious governmental department? Creating a podcast, baby. Yes, a podcast. That should do as much to change things as this video, which is to say, Nothing. We're all doing nothing here, folks. We're doing nothing. Oh, and to answer the question that you were already thinking, yes, they will have merch. And if you want something less official, the Hodge twins are already on it. MAGA is not a grift at all. Pinky promise. You know, I sure hope the FBI got a cut from all those t-shirts they sell down at Jersey Shore. Quick aside, I also found this shirt on the Hodge Twins website. So check out my own store soon, where I will be offering the limited edition shirt that features Trump eating a nookie cookie. One of the first things that these geniuses may discover when they finally get started with Doge is that there already is a department that covers this called the United States Government Accountability Office. So if you're reducing redundancies, your own department may be one of the first ones to go. And you could really start by getting rid of your own government subsidies, like the over $4 billion that was used to save Tesla. Wow, we're off to a great start, and we didn't even have to create a podcast. But let's take a look at some of the wasteful spending that Elon's going to start cutting. Veterans medical care, that should make you very popular. Section 8 housing. Pell Grants, interesting. Especially from someone who just made a post complaining about men not getting enough college degrees. Here's an idea. Instead of gutting these programs, why don't you start by asking members of Congress to repay back their PPP loans? You can start with Matt Gaetz, since he has nothing better to do now. Or get rid of the tax loophole that Trump bragged about taking advantage of in his debate all the way back in 2016.
He complains that Donald Trump took advantage of the tax code. Why didn't you change it? Why didn't you change it when you were a senator? The reason you didn't is that all your friends take the same advantage that I do. And I do. You have provisions in the tax code that frankly we could change, but you wouldn't change it because all of these people give you the money so you can take negative ads on Donald Trump.
So far, the plan is to cut a bunch of federal zombie programs, including those of NASA. NASA, the government organization that kept SpaceX afloat by being their biggest client. And Doge returns the favor by gutting a $7.7 billion project. NASA's planned human moon lander, the first of which is contracted to be built by Musk's SpaceX. But this could just be a way to screw a major competitor, Blue Origin. Either way, it looks like it's time for me to sell all of my NASA Dogecoin. Okay, so we're not going to go after companies that are price gouging. We're just going to lower grocery prices by cutting veterans healthcare and Section 8 housing. Okay? Side note, someone out there should do a deep dive on this cringe X account, Santa Decides. Something about it feels very Elon-y. Okay, yeah, this is definitely him. So, like I said 1,000 times in part 7, what's the plan here?
But in all seriousness, what is the plan here?
The plan is very simple. To become Argentina. A reasonable formula to fix the U.S. government. Melee-style cuts on steroids. So becoming Argentina is a good thing, apparently. Make America Argentina again. Argentina President Javier Milei cut annual spending by a reported 32%.
They start by tossing the Federal Communications Commission, the FTC, the SEC, the Department of Agriculture, the Postal Service. Yeah, give it to UPS. Give it to, give it to anybody except them.
All praise Milei! And another congratulations from the counter elite. We do have to give Milei some credit. Here's the original photo. Our future is Argentina's present. Oh, dear God. And all those Milton Friedman videos that Musk keeps posting on his X feed, that can't be good.
And for more information on trying really hard to make your free capitalist ideas work at any cost, please read up about the involvement of the Chicago Boys and their economic meddling in South America in the 20th century.
So I think we're starting to see the plan here. But the tariffs, that should lower grocery prices, right? Let me do a quick Google search like many Trump voters did after the election, and the Tax Foundation says a 10% universal tariff would increase taxes on U.S. households by $1,253 on average in 2025, and a 20% universal tariff would bump costs by $2,045. Well, wait until Doge hears about this. They hate import taxes. Okay, but what about the mass deportations. Will that at least make the trains run on time? Oh no. And that article's from Futurism, a news source that I assume is from the future. But on the bright side, for some Republicans, the economy is already looking good and Trump hasn't even taken office. Recent polling seems to show Trump's win has led many GOP voters to see the U.S. economy in a far better light since November 5th. In Part 7, just take a shot every time I say Part 7. And also, again, I'm sorry that the audio was so bad. But in Part 7, we saw Rush Limbaugh saying that he hopes Obama fails.
Yeah, I can answer it 4 words. I hope he fails.
And I said that we should actually be looking forward that anything that makes working people's lives better actually succeeds, even if it's counter to our ideology, but not our morals. But basically, just because we want tax cuts for the rich to work, if it's not working for the majority of workers, then we shouldn't be doing it. So I'm going to give all of these sure-to-be-doomed policies a chance. And in fact, I'm betting on it. And you too can be betting on it by signing up for Polymarket and using the promo code Joel gave me legally binding financial advice. So that's the fantasy. But even with anti-Rush Limbaugh level optimism, it doesn't look very likely. There's lots of talk about economic conditions being similar to the times before the recessions and depressions that followed the Hoover, Nixon, and Bush administrations.
And I've been around for a long time, and it just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans. Now, it shouldn't be that way, but if you go back, I mean, it just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats
Well,
than
it
the
certainly
Republicans.
did well under Clinton,
Well,
but I
it did.
wouldn't suggest it was so great under Jimmy Carter.
That's true. That's
if
true.
you remember, the
That's
interest
true.
rates.
No, I know. It's Jimmy Carter was not in the same thing, but certainly we had some very good economies under Democrats as well as Republicans. But we've had some pretty bad disaster under the Republicans.
And Donald Trump may be right, but even Kamala would not be able to stop a coming recession. It's just not in the power of the president. And it certainly wouldn't be in the power of an austerity-loving group like the Democrats. Homelessness increased 12% under Biden, and the Democrats chose to ignore it and spend more time letting you know that Dick Cheney liked them better than Trump. Remember the year 2020? No, not that. Like before that. Like January, February, early March.
Make the case for why a revolution is not what the country needs or wants.
We have problems we have to solve now. Now, what's a revolution going to do? Disrupt everything in the meantime?
Kind of ironic now that the average Trump voter is just loudly saying, yes, disrupt everything. You see, at this point, a sort of deal was made between the Democratic Party and the progressive left. Let us have Biden over Bernie because we need to beat Trump. It's just too important this time. We're going to beat him once and then he just goes away forever. Then in 4 years or whatever, you can do all of your Medicare for all crap. Now let's shake on it, and we promise to give everyone $2,000. Well, actually $600, because we gave you $1,400 already. So if you add that, then technically that is the $2,000 that we were... Well, it was 4 years later, and everything was forgotten. There was no talk at all about Medicare for all this year, just, here's a cop who owns a gun, vote for her.
Not vote for her because she was a woman, even if she were better qualified than any man?
If we had followed that law, I might.
That low? I think you have a very, very low opinion of women.
Let me answer this. It is not to a woman's personal interest to rule men. It puts her in a very unhappy position.
And after all the fear-mongering that Donald Trump was somehow going to shove himself back in the White House, he just won a Democratic election, got the popular vote, and they shook hands and welcomed him back.
Donald, congratulations.
The Democratic Party seems all too happy to just slide right alongside Trump and the Republicans and move straight from neoliberalism to an even crueler form of barbarism.
We are going to get back to a healthy two-party system, I am sure of that.
Trump's administration, whatever they do, will eventually be rehabilitated and not seen as some huge divergent from the norm, but just another administration that maybe we just didn't always agree with. They will get the same treatment that George W. Bush and Dick Cheney have just received.
So I want to thank your father, Vice President Dick Cheney, for his support.
I was in college during the Bush administration. You may remember from Part 4.
George W. Bush.
And during that time, I collected a lot of anti-Bush books. You know, all the ones that Bob Woodward kept putting out. It felt that as history went on, these crooks and liars would be studied in a way to see how such egregious criminals just took over the White House. Or at the very least, their images would linger on for decades as a curious case of abuse of power, sort of like Nixon. But no, once Trump came into the picture, no one cared about Bush and Cheney any longer. It's unfortunate to say, but that same treatment will happen to Trump when a new face arises. Possibly you, JD. We're all aware of the Fukuyama quote about the end of history after the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, I'm not advocating for Fukuyama, but I recently learned that he concludes that the end of history will be a sad time because the potential of ideological struggles that people were prepared to risk their lives for has now been replaced with the prospect of economic calculation, the endless solving of technical problems, environmental concerns, and the satisfaction of sophisticated consumer demands.
There is a great irony at work in the fact that maybe Fukuyama has won.
So let's go back to another man from Ohio, someone a bit younger than JD and I, a spry 39-year-old from Cincinnati named Vivek Ramaswamy. When I was pulling some of his tweets for this video, I saw that he shared a video from a Dutch far-right commentator.
Did you know that already back in 1840, French philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville very accurately predicted and described in his book Democracy in America what type of tyranny a modern population like the American one had to be fearful of? Because as Tocqueville predicted, tyranny in a modern democratic society like America would look very different from the types of tyranny that European nations had faced up until then in aristocratic societies, for example. Let me quote, "It covers the service of society with a network of small, complicated rules, through which the most original minds and the most energetic characters cannot penetrate to rise above the crowd. The will of man is not shattered, but softened, bent, and guided. Men are seldom forced by it to act, but they are constantly restrained from acting. Such a power does not destroy, but it prevents existence. It does not tyrannize, but it compresses, enervates, extinguishes, and stupefies a people, till each nation is reduced to nothing better than a flock of timid and industrious animals, of which the government is the shepherd." Well, if that is not an accurate description of what actually ended up happening, not just to America, but to all modern democratic societies who have turned into absolute bureaucratic nightmares, then I don't know what is. Tocqueville was absolutely right, and that's why I'm so excited and happy to congratulate Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk on their appointments of the leader of the D.O.G.E.
Before I saw that assessment of de Tocqueville, I was already thinking about talking about something similar with
Herbert Marcuse.
Some people say Marcuse, which may be correct, but I want to say Marcuse, the Mark Levin way.
I read what Herbert Marcuse wrote, and he wrote a lot.
I wanted to talk about a sentiment that he writes about in his book, The One-Dimensional Man. Herbert Marcuse was German and left during Hitler's rise to come live in America. When he was living in America in the 1950s, he started to get an uneasy feeling from what he was seeing around him. Don't worry, I'm going to tie this back to de Tocqueville. But first, let me oversimplify The One-Dimensional Man by reading from Wikipedia. Marcuse argues that advanced industrial society created false needs which integrated individuals into the existing system of production and consumption via mass media, advertising, industrial management, and contemporary modes of thought. This results in a one-dimensional universe of thought and behavior, in which aptitude and ability for critical thought and oppositional behavior wither away. If we're to believe Vivek and this video he shared about de Tocqueville, then simple government bureaucracy is to blame. We rely on the government to solve our problems, and we ask for handouts instead of being able to truly live free. But the government bureaucracy that he's talking about exists because our current neoliberal governments only exist to maintain the order of corporate control. The type of control that he, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Peter Thiel, and even our buddy J.D. Vance already have and want more of and are afraid that they may see taken away in the future. Marcuse contends that in contemporary consumer societies, a select few wield the power to shape our conceptions of freedom by offering us the means to purchase our own happiness. In this state of unfreedom, consumers act irrationally by working more hours than they're required to in order to fulfill basic needs, by ignoring the psychologically destructive effects, by ignoring the waste and environmental damage it causes, and by searching for social connection through material items. Marcuse is saying that the form of fascism that he saw rise in Germany could not happen here, mainly because the system of control was already here and very deeply in place. Americans have no access or cannot even conceive of an alternative to the hegemony of the consumerism that surrounds them. The Democrats spent another election against Donald Trump telling us to fear fascism without bothering to acknowledge that many Americans feel that fascism is already here. They're locked into an economic system and a poor material existence that they desperately want out of but do not know how to get out of it. So they voted to just blow it up. After this election, it should be very clear that politics and elections themselves are nothing more than consumerism. The Democrats, with their billions of dollars wasted, are a money laundering scheme where I get a text asking me for $20, I send them $20, and then they pay off the text service that will then send me 10 more texts asking for another $20. And this is to say nothing about Trump watches, Trump sneakers, or bobblehead dolls from an assassination attempt. We are not able to really engage with the political process in ways that offers any true sense of change or causing any real effect into our living conditions. The greatest progressive achievement of the past century has been Obamacare, and in many ways it only came to be because it was a gift to the insurance companies. You have to give money to the insurance companies. As we saw in the entire JD&Me series, yes, JD may know how to say a few nice things, but he can't really help the working class because it is counter to his place in the world. JD gained fame on coming from these hillbillies from a humble background, and it sort of became clear that he has not only no intention of helping them, he sort of seems to resent them. It's obvious that the people he's really interested in helping are his new billionaire friends. And Daddy number one, and Daddy number two. In 1939, Walter Benjamin was a German exile living in France. He was rounded up and taken to a football stadium. His German citizenship had been stripped for being Jewish, and since he spoke German, the French incarcerated him for 3 months. When he was freed, he returned to his apartment and wrote what would be his last essay. The tradition of the oppressed teaches us that the state of emergency in which we live is not the exception, but the rule. We must attain a conception of history that is in keeping with this insight. Then we shall clearly realize that it is our task to bring about a real state of emergency, and this will improve our position in the struggle against fascism. One reason why fascism has a chance is that in the name of progress, its opponents treat it as a historical norm. So we don't have to accept this historical norm. Instead, we can rise up against the ruling class with the sword that Ross Perot gave to Bernie Sanders. So now we have 4 more years to kind of circle the drain. And in these next 4 years will be tough. And the Democratic Party and the media will slightly be trying to get you to meet them halfway. They will ask you to sacrifice some of your demands for a better existence so that they can just keep going on like they always have. Don't let them. And don't let the bastards make you mean. Love is a better foundation for society than hate. And you can show your love by hitting the like button and then hitting the subscribe button. So let's end this with another president who had to give up his office to a bunch of corporate crooks and liars just because the voters couldn't handle a little inflation.
I've never had more faith in America than I do today. We have an America that, in Bob Dylan's phrase, is busy being born, not busy dying.
Guys, thank you for watching all these, and thank you for all the great comments on all these videos. It really made me feel like there's a bunch of like-minded folks out there, generally millennials from Ohio who felt that JD sucked. Thank you for watching all of these and saying all the nice things that you guys said. I'm going to keep trying to put out more videos, working on some other fun stuff. But if you want more content, you can check out this movie that I made earlier this year called The Present Situation. It's also very political. If you remember in part 4, I have a podcast called Debate Me Coward, so get that wherever you get podcasts from. And yeah, keep watching, and thanks a lot. I've been really pleased to read all the comments and everything. Yeah, the channel is still small, so I'll create an email, and you guys can email and personally yell at me and be like, hey, I didn't think this was fair, and I will read it, and, you know, keep that in mind with future videos, or not, because I don't care. And if you're a member of the DNC and you're watching this, please send me money. I hear that you guys need outreach to terminally online young men, and I was a former young man who is still terminally online. And soon I plan on putting out a version of The Present Situation specifically catered to Gen Z viewers. Thanks, and like and subscribe. Who gives a fuck?
Way down south in the land of traitors, rattlesnakes and alligators. Right away, come away, right away, come away. Where cotton's king and men are chattels, Union boys will win the battles right away.